We're going to absolutely dismantle this list. It's just going to be, we're going to bury it. We're going to take it up behind the barn and shoot it because this list is just not great. Hello and welcome to another episode of Flashback to the Track. We're back. You know, we've been away for a while. I'm here, as always. I'm Mark, and of course, I'm joined by my good friend James. Let's hear it.
Great, have sobriety. Yeah, open up a can of sobriety. Nice.
What's going on, James? How you doing?
Not too bad, man. It's been a while. I know a lot of people have been expecting some content. They've probably been demanding it. Not really. I don't know. I do know, Mark. I can attest. A few times this year, I've had people come up to me and tell me that they're a fan of what we do. They love our podcast.
I was at Road Atlanta, and a client of mine told me that they listened to it, and they listened to it before they knew who I was. They hired me. I was like, "Wow, that's really cool."
Dang.
So that blew my mind. But yeah, very happy
circle.
to hear that.
I know. We are trackside. It's like being worldwide, but not really.
No.
I mean, we could be worldwide. There could be a track, some person working at a track somewhere in this world that's not where we are. We could be worldwide. But yeah, I mean, it's nice though. It's nice to get recognized and people like, hey, you know, we like what you do. It's like, oh, I appreciate that because we put a lot of work into this. Damn it.
We do.
And it's nice that we get
James, especially because he wrote the script for like the next 3 episodes, but because you know he's just a racing nerd and he just writes scripts while he's watching old races, and I appreciate that because we've both been very busy, but now it's the off season. Now we're gonna we post weekly. We're making baller podcasts. Don't worry.
What off season?
Yeah, I know. People think we get an off season. We don't get one, but yeah.
There's no off season.
It's just good to be back. And he said, speaking of like recognition, we have to recognize our partners at Blue Emu for everything they do for our podcast with their amazing products that work fast and don't stink. I actually have some on right now because my hips and my legs are quite sore, and it's actually helping quite a bit. So,
yeah, I mean, if you ask Shakira, she can't lie. Her hips don't lie.
Mm-hmm.
She wouldn't lie about that maximum strength relief they offer us. So thanks to Blue Emu, always wonderful supporting partner of this podcast, as well as a primary partner of NASCAR and Major League Baseball. So right on. Yeah, baseball season ended, man. Did you watch any World Series?
I did not watch the
after
World Series.
Blue Jays kind of got exit. Where did they exit? Did they make it to the playoffs?
They missed the playoffs by 1 game. So when next time someone tells you that early season losses don't mean anything, every game matters, because if they had won one more game in April, they'd have been in the playoffs. So
that's just what happens in those old school. We're gonna play over 100 game seasons. You know,
162.
Always the road games and those home losses.
They just can't win in Tampa. That's the problem. They just go to Tampa and they lose. I don't know what it is about that dome, but when I was in Atlanta this weekend, folks were quite stoked. Obviously, Atlanta won the World Series this year, so they were quite happy.
Yeah, those Atlantans all became Braves fans again. I feel like they're always hardcore Braves fans. You know, when I was over there earlier this year, you saw Braves wear, but because you know it was during the season. But I feel like the pride really comes out during the playoffs. You know, like everyone really gets behind their team, and it's like almost like city pride. You know what I mean?
I feel like I need more city pride. But yeah, I like.
Toronto. Oh, you got to have St. Pete pride. St. Pete pride. Rays should stay in St. Pete.
No, bring them to Montreal. I want them back. Montreal.
Oh no, we deserve them. We've had them since 1998. They were wonderfully on a race car once. Mark, I don't know if you ever knew that.
I remember.
Was that when they were Jeff Green
when they were the
that car?
Devil Rays?
Yeah, extreme team.
Devil Rays.
And they had purple and green. Yeah, that's my team right there. Anyways, we're going to talk about something a little more interesting today, Mark, because we're going to break it up a little bit. We're not going to talk about a specific race. We're going to talk about a racing topic, though, a topic that fan nerds, even more nerdier than us, probably debate still to this day. We're going to talk about who the top 25 race car drivers are. But we didn't put this list together. The folks at ESPN.com did back in 2008. Nice. Not bad. Looking at a 13-year-old piece of racing Americano, Mark.
Good
Beautiful.
math. Yeah, 13 years ago.
I just divided them.
So 13 years ago, folks got together, made this list of the top 25 racing drivers of all time. And the way it worked was like they were asked to list their top 25 drivers in order. So they had a bunch of people vote in this, and it could be any discipline of motorsports you wanted, right? It could be F1, NASCAR. And to preface, I'm never a fan of lists like this because it's so hard to pick the greatest racing drivers of all time when they all race different types of cars and do different things. But they did that for this list, and we're going to talk about it. So basically, any person that the voters felt deserved to be in the top 25 for their racing accomplishments in any series, they would put them on the list. And, the task obviously is, like we just said, is pretty difficult. So it ends up being quite interesting.
It's interesting because, first off, like ESPN.com put this together for ESPN.com, which is odd. This wasn't grand enough of a topic for its own issue of ESPN, the magazine. Come on. Print was not dead in 2008. Just saying. Second, to your point with that confusion, it's very confusing when you ask each distinguished voting member to make a list of 25 drivers, because I'm pretty sure a lot of people couldn't name 25 drivers in one specific discipline, let alone across the vast world of racing. So I don't know if you could do it, Mark, but I know I couldn't write at this point in time. So also, how much time were these people given? Was it like on the spot, like name some drivers right now?
They probably had to fill out a form. It's like when you do your Pro Football Hall of Fame ballot, probably that kind of deal. Probably had time to fill it out, like send it in.
They had an email or something.
And how many of the voters actually did it, or just got like their publicists to do it for them?
Yeah, because that's the thing. Because you have names on this list like Richard Petty, AJ Foyt, Jeff Gordon, Kenny Bernstein.
I don't see.
I know for a fact all four of those men
laptop, like writing down his favorite drivers. He's like me, 25.
He's a busy man.
Like,
well, you got them. Petty, Foyt, and Bernstein. They're busy like running teams, running empires, being the faces of brands and whatnot in their respective discipline. Jeff Gordon is busy in 2008, not winning a dang race. I still can't get over that. Jeff didn't win one race. Anyways, so obviously, to your point, Mark, publicists still had jobs back then, so they could easily just been like, "Hey, Jeff, who do you think is good?" So like, I don't know, just read my bio. What did I say in there? Put that. And no offense, but I'm pretty sure Jeff Gordon put AJ Foyt as number one. That or Rick Mears, but I probably was AJ Foyt. Yeah, everybody's hero was AJ Foyt. Anyways, so this whole panel composed of 19 voters, Mark. And the two of us are going to look at what those 19 voters put together. And I don't know, I guess just
we're going to absolutely dismantle this list. It's just going to be, we're going to bury it. We're taking it up behind the barn and shoot it because this list is just not great. But yeah, so basically the resume
Mark
for the 19,
did get that violent.
Yeah, the resume for the 19 voters on this panel. Apparently, of the 19 voters, there was 20 NASCAR Cup championships among 7 different voters, 5 drivers and 2 crew chiefs. There were 13 Daytona 500 victories across 3 voters. So that 7 of those are Petty's. So 5 Indy 500 victories among 2 voters, 6 NHRA titles for 1 drag racing legend, 7 Formula One victories for 1 of the voters. So that is at Juan Pablo Montoya because he won 7 F1 races, 1 kart championship, and 1 IRL championship. So clearly not enough open wheel represented in the voting, first of all. But anyway,
no.
Votes cast anonymously. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, and what of is representative, I think, is also representative of the time of ESPN's kind of relationship with open wheel racing, kind of fleeting a little bit at the time. I don't know. Conspiracy?
So the votes were cast anonymously. Voters weren't required to reveal their selections. A few wanted readers to know which they ranked number one. Tony Stewart was quite proud of his top pick. Obviously, it was AJ Foyt. A couple of voters listed their number one choice, but didn't want to place the other 24 names in a particular order. And ESPN respected their wishes. So,
which doesn't make sense because you're supposed who's supposed to rank them? Mark, you list all these accomplishments that these probably men achieved on this list. And I'll be honest, both of us don't care about any of those accomplishments because they just couldn't put together a good list. Just going to be straight about that.
They didn't even have a Formula One world champion on this list. Come on.
Yeah. And there's a lot of Formula One world champions on the list. And
at the time, Michael Schumacher was retired. So he had time to do this. That was before he came back in 2010. So he had time to fill this list out. Why didn't they get a hold of him? Come on.
It's not a conspiracy theory, Mark. I'm telling you, there was more drag racing and NASCAR on ESPN in 2008 than there was Formula One or IndyCar.
Brutal. Let's get into this list. So we'll run it down. So we'll go 25-1.
We will say over or under. So just to kind of give you a point of they're either overrated for being on this list or their placement on the list, or they're underrated for their placement on the list. That's as far as we'll go in the moment.
So
let's
go ahead. You start off with number 25.
I'll start it off with 25. We'll do it. We'll try to talk about people we like. How about that? Maybe that helps.
Okay.
Okay. So starting at number 25, we're going to talk about Steve Kenzer, aka the King of the Outlaws, a 20-time World of Outlaws champion with 690 World of Outlaw victories, main victories. So yeah. Mark, I'd say Steve Kenzer is willing to be on this list because of how in America, obviously the road to Indy and open wheel racing obviously does go through the World of Outlaws at times. And a lot of great drivers come from that and idolize a guy like Steve Kenzer to be as proficient in his craft, I think speaks a lot. The other accolade I could probably add to him and that list was his one IROC victory. I mean, that is a subject matter we do talk about with a lot of the other drivers on this list. But does he deserve to be on this list? I kind of want to say yes, but then I also understand that there could be a reason why he shouldn't be on this list. He has raced around the world though, because sprint open wheel racing and then wing sprint cars like this do race in New Zealand and Australia. So he does have that status, man, but I feel I'm just kind of trying to save him from not being on this list. So you go ahead and talk.
I'm fine with him being number 25. I think he's perfectly where he needs to be. I'm good with having a dirt champion like him on there. He's fine at number 25. That's a good spot for him. Dirt fans going to kill me, but I'm not a big dirt racing guy. I don't know a lot about it, but I respect it. I'm good with him being on there at number 25.
I will say though, Danny Lesowski has a cooler nickname. I mean, the dude.
Didn't Danny Lesowski also win an IROC race as well? So
he did. He won one at Texas. So
I think he led every lap too, or something like that. So
because he's dominant, Danny.
Because they ran they ran the 550 package on ovals, so no one could pass. So
if you want, you can look at our old episode and check it out. We did review that race.
We did. So next up, we have at number 24, we have Nigel Mansell, the Lion, the mustachioed Nigel Mansell. 1992 Formula One world champion. He's got 31 victories in F1, and he's the 1993 IndyCar Series champion with 5 IndyCar victories. And there was a brief moment where he was both the reigning F1 world champion and the reigning IndyCar champion. About a month, he was the reigning champion of both.
I thought it was like a week, but
yeah, it was a couple. It was a couple weeks because like F1 ended later, right?
So he got knighted. He's the F1 champion and IndyCar champion.
And he has a dope mustache. So Nigel Mansell at 24, I honestly don't think he should be on this list. I actually top 25 race car drivers of all time. Nigel Mansell's not a name that I would have thrown out there. He's an amazing race car driver, but there's like 7 or 8 F1 drivers I'm easily going to put in front of him. So
yeah, and there's a couple other drivers from other disciplines I would recommend. I mean, a fantastic open wheel driver to especially cross over 1 year after winning the F1 title to come to IndyCar, two completely different vehicles and different kinds of open wheel racing. You know, yeah, to your point, I mean, yeah, very big time capsule person. But there could be, it could be argued that there are more deserving people to be on the list rather than Nigel Mansell. I think we agree with that. You know, just remove him from the building, please. Next up is Big Daddy Don Garlits. That's right. 10-time American Hot Rod Association champion, four international Hot Rod Association championships, and 3 national Hot Rod Association championships. That's the NHRA. Yeah, very big pioneer in drag racing, especially during the 60s and 70s. It's got a big museum off I-75, Mark. You should check it out, dude. I've never been there, but it's in Lakeland. Not Lakeland. It's in Ocala. I'm not kidding. He's got a huge museum there. Very influential figure in drag racing. Mark, you can make your determination on this one. You think Big Daddy should be on this list?
Not really familiar with Don Garlits very much. I'm not big into drag racing and drag racing history. So if you think I'll go with whatever you think on this one. I will just concede because I'm man enough to admit I don't have enough knowledge of the topic to make to discern whether he deserves to be on there or not.
I feel like he does, but then as time's gone on, are there other names you could put on that list or you'd want to, or if different people were asked, would they have given a different answer? I'll be like Nikki Lauda, I don't know, man. I'm just gonna throw my hands up and be like, I don't know. I'm gonna say no. He doesn't deserve to be on this list. I say make room. We'll be like Nigel. You can kindly exit the building, please.
All right. At 22, we have Nikki Lauda, the three-time F1 world champion. He's known as King Rat, 25 Grand Prix victories and 2 Monaco Grand Prix victories. Nikki Lauda came back from a horrific crash where he had severe burns and came back and won another world championship after that. And he also won world championships with multiple teams, which is something rare in F1. Does he deserve to be on this list? Yes. I think so. 3 F1.
I mean, how many Formula One people have had movies, major films made after them that were actually really good? I mean, Ron Howard made a movie about this guy.
Yeah. Fun fact: James Hunt not on the list. The other guy.
I was about to say the other guy in the film wasn't on this. But then again, the other guy doesn't have as many Formula One world championships as this guy, and Monaco Grand Prix and Grand Prix victories. And to your point, Lauda's career lasted quite some time in an era when, careers and lives didn't last that long in the sport. He survived that horrific accident, came back, and, he still was competitive for so long. So I think he deserves to be on the list. Mark, now, does he deserve to be higher on the list?
I'm good with where he is. I think I'm good with it because I have
in the 20 to 25 range.
I think I'm okay with that because I have more people I want to add to replace the ones we've kicked out, and there's gonna be more we're gonna move around, but we'll get to that at the end. So what's number 21?
Shuffling around here. Number 21, Shirley Moe Downey, the first lady of drag racing, 3 National Hot Rod Association championships in Top Fuel, 1977, 1980, and 1982, and she holds 18 national event victories, and her career spanned as well 60s, 70s, and 80s. Very active. She was I think we discussed in our pre recording meeting, something about Shirley was she was breaking that mold. She definitely was being a female that wasn't just looked at as a marketing item or as a looked at for her physical features. She was looked at as a serious competitor, and she was taken seriously. And I think she started to break that mold. And in drag racing, you see that more predominantly, I think, than on other motorsports, the inclusion of women, especially on the competition side. So, Shirley Moe Downey really broke mold. So I definitely she deserves to be on the list. I feel like where she's at is pretty good, hanging out with some F1 champions and whatnot.
So she should be on the list, but Don Garlits shouldn't.
Yeah, no, I feel like when you break social norms like she did, I feel like that really pushes your placement. There's the fact that all drivers on this list have won championships, and winning championships is important. It showcases your longevity within the series and your ability to showcase your talent throughout the season. But what you could do in making an impact that goes beyond the sport, I think that also helps resonate too. And, sometimes it gets lost in lists like this because, sometimes you look at numbers or sometimes you're just looking at a name and you forget about the whole body of work, the whole contribution. So that's why I would put her on the list.
Fair enough. I'll go with that. At 20, we have Daryl Waltrip. Jaws. This is an interesting one. James and I were talking before, and I said, when I think of top 25 drivers of all time, Daryl Waltrip's just not a name that comes to mind to me. Now, but you look, because I think for me, I more associate Daryl Waltrip with the sad years, the end of his career when he was super slow. And as Tony Stewart said, should have been retired about 5 years before that. And obviously his time as a broadcaster and things like that. So he does 83 Cup victories though, and 3 Cup championships, and he won the Daytona 500. Does he deserve to be on top 5 racing drivers, or top 25 racing drivers of all time?
In America, yes. I don't think if we're talking,
it's an American list, clearly, where it's shaping up to be a very American.
Dude, is Nikki Lauda Nikki Lauda is not an American.
He's the only one. Well, actually,
Nigel Mansell,
English. Yes, but is that another artist that Americans think is American? Like, Americans.
We've adopted these.
The Rolling Stones are American. Yeah.
When Nikki Lauda was put into a motion picture by American Ron Howard, he became an American.
Ah, gotcha. Okay,
that's when it happened. Same with James Hunt. They're now like they have citizenship, even though they're both dead. I'm sorry, gotcha. But they have citizenship though. Anyways, yeah, if we're talking like top 25 in America, definitely arguable, especially like I said, the whole body of work. I'm not talking about broadcaster. I'm talking about within his career, being Jaws, being that outspoken driver who was not afraid to be interviewed, to say what was on his mind, to kind of sell tickets. That really broke the norm of what drivers were in that period of during NASCAR. So that's huge. For this list, I don't think so. I think he did some pretty amazing things. He overcome some really big adversity throughout his career. But I mean, he didn't almost die like Nikki Lauda did.
It's just those sad years at the end of his career that kill him for me. I just remember him
kills a lot of people.
In like 35th for like 5 years. It's like, why, Daryl? Why are we doing this?
It's like, should Michael Schumacher, should he ever have come back, or do you go out on top?
I had a podium that final year, but yeah, like it was weird. I remember, fun story. So one time I tweeted a fact that was like, Daryl Waltrip drove Michael Waltrip's like Busch car in the last Busch race in Martinsville, right? It was Daryl Waltrip's last ever race. And Daryl Waltrip retweeted it and it was like, yeah, we had top 10 speed. We're up in the top 10 at one point. And I looked up the loop data and he was like never higher than like 27th in that race. So revisionist history is real. You know what, Daryl? We still love you, bud.
So I think we both agree he's not on this list. So we'll ask Daryl to kindly exit through the gift shop. Next up, number 19, Emerson Fittipaldi, Emo, as they called him.
Too low, way too low.
Ooh, whoa. Mark, he's feisty about this one. 31 Grand Prix victories. 2 Indy 500 championships. In 1989 and 1993. And I say championships because, Mark, some races are so big that you're not just the winner, you're a champion. So some races just are that big. And of course, he won an IndyCar World Championship title back in 1989. Dude, yeah, I think he should be much higher. I'm only going to say this just for satirical factor. For being baller enough to be like, yo, I'm going to drink orange juice instead of milk in victory lane at Indy, dude, you're number one. Number one.
Yeah, and this man had two distinctly different careers. So he had a Formula One career, won 2 world championships, retired, and then came back like, oh, I'm gonna race IndyCar, and then just started whipping everyone at IndyCar. He won like oval races. He won 500s. He'd never raced on an oval before. Mo is way too low on this list. Needs to be higher. Top 10.
Yeah, and especially in a period when like the cars, he drove through many different rendition of the kart IndyCar. Like it evolved so much while he was driving it, and he had so much success throughout each iteration of the chassis. So yeah, just agree. Should be like top 10, not even outside the top 10 where he is. So yeah, we'll move him up. It's okay.
Next up, we have the professor, Alain Prost. And Prost or Prost, I can never remember how to say it, so it's fine.
I think it's Prost.
I think that's how the British always say it on podcasts I listen to. Prost. So 4 F1 World Championships, including back-to-back in 85 and 86, and then in 89, and he won in 93 as well. 51 Grand Prix victories. He won Monaco 4 times, and he had to have Ayrton Senna as a teammate. So this man is a real trooper. Way too low.
Had to have.
Hey, when you have to deal with
Way
someone
too
like
low.
him, you know, and you have to race against him every week in the same equipment, like way too low. Should be top 10. Should be ahead of Mo. Like I don't understand why he's 18th.
I agree he should be higher up. And then again, you know, this again comes back to the pooling of the voters, you know, what they're giving the people at ESPN.com to rank these by. Maybe his name just didn't pop up as frequently. Yeah, you know, I his career is like a legendary, dude. But like there's a point I gotta ask you, man. At some point, is the top 10 gonna be too full, and you got to start kicking people out of the top 10? I mean, top 15 maybe. I don't know about top 10. Though 51 Grand Prix victories is a lot.
That's a lot of victories and 4 championships. And again, he sat out in 92, and then he came back with Williams in the most baller move in 93, won the world championship again, and was pieced out. So
all car, no offense. That was all car.
Yeah, they had active suspension and no one else did. So it was all car, but like still, come on.
Still,
it was pretty baller for him to just come back and like mic drop and then walk out. But yeah.
But then again, that's how that kind of racing is. You know, it's all political in the point of, you know, someone will have the best car at the beginning of the year, and it's about catching them. And some, you know, he wasn't the best car. So yeah. I don't know, man. Maybe he's 11th. I don't know if he's in the top 10 for me, but like, I agree. He should be higher on the list.
All
right. Moving on.
All right.
Bobby Unser, AKA Uncle Bobby.
R.I.P. Uncle Bobby.
USAC IndyCar National Championships. R.I.P. my man. We never knew you as a 3-time Indy 500 champion or the champion in IROC in 1975. We rather knew you as a wonderful commentator who really painted a picture when you talk. Seriously, Bobby. Like, I watch old races, and to hear him talk, it's so foreign, man. You don't hear something like that. You'll never hear someone who cared about racing like that and broadcasted it like that. So now, Mark, again, we're going to do the Daryl Waltrip thing. We're talking American and we're talking world list. And in the American list, he's definitely in the top 25. On the world scale, is he a top 25 driver?
Won the Indy 500 3 times. So that's pretty big.
It's big.
IndyCar championship twice. IROC, inaugural IROC champion. The one year they ran those Porsches.
Yeah, that's a big thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I don't know, man. Some of these are really hard. It's like I really like Uncle Bobby and I want him to be on the list. It's like, but should he be on the list? Right. I don't know, man. I don't think he makes the list of all time. I don't think he does.
I think he's 26th right now.
Again, he's like a one disciplined driver, right? In a way. Like I know he's raced all kinds of different stuff, but he comes across as well. All his achievements are in open wheel cars. So I don't know.
Yeah, and also we'll point that out too about like every single open wheel driver that we've already named on this list. We have specifically, touted their open wheel achievements, and that's mainly because that's what they're known for. But all these drivers had vast periods where they drove like sports cars and other, other cars in like the respective discipline of like road racing, but we're only talking about the grand achievements. And with that, I mean, when you rank it alongside a lot of the other people on this list, maybe, the driving side of what Bobby Unser did wasn't as significant as the whole body of work. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, maybe not for this ESPN.com list. Sorry, Bobby.
Next up, Mr. The Smoke. It's Tony Stewart. So
Mr. The Smoke.
Tony Stewart. Way too high. I'm sorry. I love Tony Stewart, but they have him ahead of Alain Prost. Come on. That's ridiculous. But okay. Anyway, so obviously a 3-time NASCAR Cup Series champion, right? So that's great. 49 Cup Series victories. And he won that joke of a 1996 IndyCar IRL championship, but he won it. That's what matters.
Yeah, before he wised up and realized maybe NASCAR is better suited for me right now.
I think he only finished like 4 races that year or something, and he won the championship. Like, it was crazy. It was a really weird
I think that's
season.
all there was.
Yeah, it was like,
and it was
6
like
races. I'm gonna Google it right now.
Wasn't it split up between 2 years? I think it was. And like the Indy 500 technically was a race this year. But yeah, anyways, while Mark looks that up, yeah, Tony Stewart on this list. Yes, he is a multifaceted driver. He's got a championship in a stock car and an open wheel car.
I'm sorry.
Drip. Go ahead.
He finished in the top 5 4 times, and he won the championship. He was on the podium twice. He won 1 race, and he won the championship.
That's what you call consistency, kids.
Yeah, honestly.
That's why him and Matt Kenseth were really good friends. They were just consistent. It wasn't because they were racing in the Busch Series at the same time in the late 90s. Yeah, man, I agree. He's a little too high on this list, but then again, he's got multiple Cup Series championships. You look at the pool of drivers that are being asked, any driver in NASCAR, I believe at that period, I think again, this period, Tony Stewart has 2 Cup titles, and he's ranked this high on this list. It just speaks to the pool that's being, asked. So I don't know, Mark, I think you want to put him somewhere else on this list.
Well, the more I think about it, like I put him down towards I put him in the 20s if we're going to have him on, because now he did win a lot of Xfinity races as well. He won like 7 races at Daytona, season openers. Like he also raced in the Indy 500 and the Cook 600 on the same day, and he's the only guy to complete all 1,100 miles. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I feel like that adds a lot. Like you're saying, the whole body of work, that's huge.
Yeah,
because he's the best out of anybody who's ever done it.
Exactly. Only 4 guys have done it, and he's the only one to finish all 1,100 miles. So that's pretty cool. And he was in that 3 Doors Down music video. So that alone puts him on the list. So I'm good with him at I'm good with him at like 24th. He can be right ahead of Steve Kenzer.
All right. The King and Smoke, they're together. But how about number 15? We're going to talk about Ansar Senior. Big Al. That's right. 2-time IndyCar Series champion, 1983 and 1985, and 4-time Indy 500 champion, 1970, 1971, 1978, and 1987. I don't know how many people have actually gone back to back, but I think it's like less than 5, right?
It's very rare.
Yeah. So very rare feat, and he achieved it. 1978 IROC Series champion, and holds 39 IndyCar Series victories to his name. I think Big Al's pretty fair in his spot. Yeah,
I'm kind of good. I'm kind of good with that. That doesn't really irk me at all. Like, I'm kind of okay with that. Like,
no, he had a good offspring. He had a good career. 15's good in the world. So yeah, Big Al.
I'll take it.
Next up,
Cale Yarborough.
A guy without a nickname, but fun fact, Mark, this is the guy who gave Daryl Waltrip his nickname of Jaws. Yeah, so he doesn't have a nickname, but he gave a nickname.
But Cale Gale is named after him, so that's what really matters. 3 NASCAR Cup Series championships.
Dang, that's influential right there. I'd name a baby after someone for winning 3 NASCAR championships in a row, Mark. Only one other driver has done that. His name is Jimmy Johnson.
That's right. 4-time Daytona 500 champion, 83 Cup Series victories, and the 1984 IROC championship. I'm kind of
he competed. Go ahead.
Good with that. Oh yeah, he competed in the Indy 500 as well, right?
That's all I was gonna say. Yeah, he's competed at Indy, so he's got open wheel experience, even though it's oval racing. But still, I'm good with it.
I'm kind of good with that. Like if we're gonna have NASCAR guys on this list, I think that's pretty good. Like,
yeah, and like, you know, probably people will be like, well, Daryl Waltrip and Cale Yarbrough, look at them, and actually they're very similar in the statistics standpoint. Same number of titles, same number of victories. You know, the Daytona 500 victories, you know, it helps sway into Cale's favor because that's the biggest race in the sport, you know, and to be on the top of that mountain, to be a champion of that race, that's big. And also, you know, he won it with an in-car camera. That's huge.
Yeah,
back
like
in the day,
900 pounds of extra equipment. Yeah,
pretending to make race car noises as he's driving around, leading the race. Legendary. Yeah.
I'm good with that. That doesn't bother me. Like him at 14 doesn't really bother me.
All right, we're all good there.
Although we're going to contradict ourselves when we get to the end and we list all the drivers we think should have been on the list because we have to kick everybody else off. But yeah,
exactly. So everyone needs a home, unfortunately.
13, Jackie Stewart.
Yes, the Flying Scot. Yeah, Flying Scot, Jackie Stewart. 3 Formula One World Championships to his name, 1969, 1971, 1973. Wow, that was a really dangerous era of Formula One. Yeah. 27 Grand Prix victories and 3 Monaco Grand Prix victories. Yeah, he raced in the most dangerous era of Formula One. One of the most iconic names in Formula One. I'm good with it. Higher or lower, I don't know, Mark.
Yeah, I'm good with that. That doesn't bother me. Jackie Stewart at 13, sure. Next up.
All right. Next up, John Brute Force. John Force specifically. Mark, I think you're gonna already say, like, man, he's already too high on this list. And I'm kind of with you a little bit. I feel like he's too high for having 16 national championships.
I'm not really like a drag racing guy, so I'm always going to think that that's going to be too high. But because like where do we value drag racing as compared to like F1 or IndyCar? You know, but it's like they're the top level of their specific type of racing. So it's like,
yeah,
again, I think I just don't have the knowledge of drag racing to like make a discern whether he deserves to be 12th or not. Like but just in conversation, if we're talking about race car drivers, are we going to put John Force ahead of Alain Prost in a regular conversation? Probably not.
John Force has gone faster than Alain Prost, though.
Yeah,
and John Force has probably been the lunk bank much more than Alain, and probably should have died way more times.
And he had a cameo on King of the Hill. So
yeah, that's a huge thing. He's transcended beyond drag racing. His name alone is so iconic. This is only just justifying him being on this list even further. I think another thing is you speak about Daryl dwindling in his old years. John's still out there winning rounds, winning national events. Like, dude just keeps going. So 12, I don't know, Mark. Maybe number 5. No. I want to say 15, but then Big Al's there and they'll bump him forward. Maybe we take where Tony Stewart is and we put him there. He's 16 now.
Sure. I'm good with that.
Okay. Makes Mark happy. Now I'll let Mark talk about the next guy then.
Next up is Rick Mears. And he's the 4-time Indy 500 champion, 3 IndyCar championships, and 26 IndyCar victories. So a lot of these IndyCar guys have very similar statistics. So it's like you have to really go to the intangibles and things like that to decide who you think is the best one. And like for me, Rick Mears is like legendary, right? Like he's incredible, and he's still working with Penske as like a spotter and a driver coach. Like he's Yeah, 3 IndyCar championships back to back in 81, 82. Like he also won the Indy 500 in 3 different decades. He won in the 70s, 80s, and
Yep.
the 90s. So that's pretty cool with all different types of cars. So I'm good with Rick Mears at 11. I think I'm okay with that. Especially like if this is a very Americanized list. So I think like on an American list, he's top 10. Easy.
Easily. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think just being outside that top 10, yeah, he was like on top of the world, winning the not only championships in IndyCar, but specifically just winning that many Indy 500s. I mean, his name is constantly regarded because he's on that list of the most winners. You know, it's something that everyone recognizes him for, and also diverse. Man, he started in off-road racing and then moved to open wheel. So I think that's pretty cool. Speaking of diverse, another guy who jumped from disciplines, Jeff Gordon, or we know him as the Rainbow Warrior. It's funny, Mark. He's known as the Rainbow Warrior, yet he spent all those years in that flame car.
I always thought it was just that like the crew were the Rainbow Warriors. I never referred to Jeff as the Rainbow Warrior.
It's weird. It's like it goes every which way.
I guess.
It's all marketing, I guess, Anyways, my nickname for Jeff Gordon, first off, is Super G. So I'm just gonna end it right there. 4 NASCAR Cup Series titles, 1995, 97, 98, and 2001. 3 Daytona 500 championships, 97, 99, 2005. 93 victories throughout his Cup Series career. And I think a really cool fun fact is he was even in the conversation for the championship in his final full season. So, talk about longevity.
He also won the Rolex 24 in 2017, bud. So let's not forget about that.
We haven't mentioned anybody's sports car facts.
Yeah, I know. We're gonna mention sports cars at the end and be like, well, all these sports car drivers, no one ever mentioned them. But
fuck Scott Sharp. No, I'm just kidding. Fuck Tommy Kendall.
Oh my god, I never even thought of Scott Sharp. I'm gonna bring that up at the end. I didn't even consider Scott Sharp.
I know.
That's its own conversation.
So drivers.
Oh my god.
So
such disrespect to Scott Sharp.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyways,
so Jeff
Scott
Gordon, does he deserve to be top 10?
I think so.
I think his name alone, because he's a NASCAR driver that people in Europe know, that people in Asia know. They know Jeff Gordon.
Yep.
And I think the name
on at the right time.
Yeah.
Yes. It was perfect timing. Just when the .com bubble hits, things become more known throughout the world. He's winning the biggest races in NASCAR when NASCAR is getting picked up the way it should. Has the wonderful the crossover with Juan Pablo Montoya. What was it, 2003 at Indy? That got him more global recognition. There was a point where he was going to go to Formula One. He's top 10.
Top 10 for sure.
He's top 10. Even though I always pick on him a lot, he's top 10. So love you, Jeff.
Now we're
doing good.
Deep into the top 10. We have number 9. We have Juan Manuel Fangio, the 5-time Formula One world champion in 1951, 54, 55, 56, and 57. 4 consecutive championships, 24 Grand Prix victories, and he won the Indy 500 in 1965. 1,000% should be top 10.
Oh, he should be higher, dude. I think he's almost top 5 for what he did in that short period of time. Dude, like, no wonder he was the maestro.
Yeah, so we're in agreement there. A quick one.
Yeah, get him a little higher on the list. Get him in towards the top 5, especially too because like his Indy 500 championship, that was in an era when F1 you would have to decide between Monaco or Indy, and he went to Indy one time, so that's pretty cool. I'll let you jump on to the next one to keep the open wheel theme going.
Jim Clark at number 8, another F1 2-time F1 world champion in 1963 and 1965, 25 Grand Prix victories, 2 Monacos. Love Jim Clark. Amazing story. Too high on this list. There's several F1 guys who should be ahead of him, I think, but I wasn't around in the 60s to watch Jim race. So, but I think there's F1 guys already on this list that should be ahead of him. So I think he's a little
definitely
high.
A pioneer. Yeah, a little high. Pioneer for sure. Racing a very dangerous era. Glad he survived. but you have a point. I mean, we were harsh with Nigel Mansell not being on the list. I think Jim Clark not having the same staying power to be as high on the list, but we might not be talking with the whole story. We might be talking out of our butts. I don't know. Anyways, Mark, how about this one? Number 7, David Pearson, the Silver Fox, 3-time NASCAR Cup Series champion, 1966, 68, and 69. He has a Daytona 500 championship to his name and that dramatic finish in 1976 with Richard Petty, where they both came crashing towards the start finish line, and has 121 NASCAR Cup Series victories to his name. And no, he did not race full time. Mark, he probably would have been the guy to have probably made Richard Petty not be the king. Richard probably wouldn't have had 7 championships and 200 victories if David Pearson raced full time.
He also has the coolest nickname of all time, Silver Fox.
Yeah,
it's fantastic.
So,
and he would smoke while he was driving. Baller.
No wonder Winston got involved in NASCAR back then. Everybody's smoking.
God. Smoking makes you look cooler. I'm sorry, it does. But
it does, yeah. Why do you think Wes Anderson films saw people smoking?
Because as soon as you give a character a cigarette, they have more personality. Immediately.
And as soon as I see that, I want a cigarette. So it wins. And that's why tobacco sales are up, people. We're just stating facts here, all right?
Don't smoke, kids. It's bad for you. But yeah,
it's bad for your lungs.
This is a tough one, man, because it's the era thing again. When he raced, there was 5 cars that could win. And this is going to come up with the next driver too, because it's just a situation where it's is it that impressive? You know what I mean?
I think for not doing it as frequently it is.
Yeah,
definitely for that fact.
But should we have Jeff Gordon? He has more wins, but Jeff Gordon's got another championship. He's got 2 more 500s, and he's got that Rolex 24. That's big for me. It's huge. That's the most important accolade of his. So.
Yeah, I see what you're meaning. We could probably dive deeper into David's stats to find out additional things, but maybe that whole aspect of the limited diversity could be hurting David's staying power on this list. But then again, I think that comes back down to the bigger question, the American list versus the world list.
In the American list, he's top 10 because the American list is going to be all F1 all NASCAR, IndyCar, and a couple of off-road guys. So
yeah, specifically Robbie Gordon.
Of course, I'm good with him at number 7 on the American list, but I don't know. I think Jeff Gordon's ahead of him. Jeff Gordon also raced in arguably NASCAR's most competitive era, where there was 30 cars that could win every week.
That is true. But David Pearson actually raced stock cars.
True.
Which jumps into the next person, the king of stock car racing, Mr. the King himself, Richard Petty. 7 NASCAR Cup Series titles, 64, 67, 71, 72, 74. You were there for that one, Mark. 75.
Yeah, I was there.
And then again, it's 79. I was there for that one. Good times. 7 Daytona 500 championships, 64, 66, 71, 73, 74, 79 in dramatic fashion in 1981 as well. And 200 NASCAR Cup Series victories. The king of stock car racing. He even spent a year drag racing, Mark, if you did not know. He raced a 65 Barracuda.
Okay. So
it was a Plymouth.
It's real talk time. Again, like the David Pearson one, I am very much in the camp of Richard Petty's 200 win mark is not that impressive because in the era that he raced, there was only 2 or 3 cars that could win because he would win races by laps. He would be so far ahead. There'd be one other car on the lead lap, or he'd lap every car because he had a bigger engine than everyone else, stuff like that. So there was a lot of shadiness going on, but then you obviously can't take it away from him because he did win 200 races. That happened, but it's just, again, it's the era thing. He won the Daytona 500 7 times. And that was in an era where the Daytona 500 was a very different style of racing than it is now. So that's very impressive. But on the American list, he's probably top 3. I would say it'd be an argument of who's number 1. I think he'd definitely be top 3. I think you have to have him in the top 10 though, because he's the most decorated stock car driver of all time. So I think he has to be in the top 10 of this list. Whether it's 6, 7, 8, doesn't matter to me. I think I'm good with him being in the top 10.
He definitely deserves to be in the top 10 on this list. I think right here, I think he's fine right here. I think the biggest thing in my mind that transcends with him is his era that he competed in within specifically the 60s and the 70s, the most influential period with the automotive manufacturers involved with the sport and involved in motorsport in America, which was huge. And how almost his involvement was influential in their involvement. And, to that point, that kind of brought on like bigger motors and his more competitive team when he had Plymouth's backing, compared to a lot of other drivers and teams on the track. And to David Pearson's credit, that's probably a reason why he was so competitive against Richard Petty, was he was able to drive for a team that was of caliber to get that support during that era. So yeah, he deserves to be on this list for sure. Definitely an iconic racing figure of time period. Transcends the sport, transcends pop culture. It's just hard to kind of place some of these more iconic people as time has gone on and you've seen other people achieve things and you kind of see the eras of past and present and how they differ.
So we're in the top 5 now. At 5th, we have Ayrton Senna, the Rainmaster, the 3-time F1 world champion, 88, 90, 91, 41 Grand Prix victories, and he won Monaco 6 times. Obviously, we lost him in 1994. He probably would have raced for at least 5 or 6 more seasons. And this is a tough one because he passed away in the middle of his career. So, but we can only judge him on what he did accomplish. He won Monaco 6 times. This is a weird one. Like, I'm good with him at 5. Like, that's a really good spot to put him because I think if you ask anyone that raced against him, he was probably the best driver in the grid. So I'm good with him at number 5. There's not really much to talk about. He's number 5. That's fine.
Yeah, this thing, it's like when your career's cut so short, like you're saying, you only have the body of work to look at, but you can only ask what if, which is crazy. All right, Mark, how about we talk about Michael Schumacher, another 7-time champion, a 7-time Formula One world champion, 94, 95, 2000, 2001, 2002, and 2003, along with 2004, 91 career victories in Formula One, 5 Monaco Grand Prix victories. At number 4, Mark, is that fair?
Should be higher.
Ooh, I mean that only gives us like 3 spots to put.
In 2008, he's at 1st or 2nd. I think at this point he's also like the top rated. Well, no, he's not the top Formula One guy on this list, but yeah, to your point, 2008 he just retired from Formula One competition. Around that period. I would have him at number 3, I think, on my list. So you can argue the F1 argument always, he had the best car. And it's like, yeah, and the best driver is in the best car. Like that's my argument, is like, if you're not good, you're not driving that car. And Michael Schumacher had a season where he finished on the podium in every single race. That's ridiculous. Like, didn't have a single crash, didn't have a single tire failure or anything. He finished on the podium in every single race. Like, unbelievable. And he won 5 consecutive championships. So, and he won championships with
an amazing teammate.
Yeah,
he did, but he had a great change. I think that's, another thing too. Talk about Prost and Senna, Barrichello and Schumacher never gets as much praise as it should have. It's amazing.
Now, granted, he did win a lot of races on team orders. Now there were times where like Barrichello had to pull over and let him go by. And like, that sucks. But Schumacher like is what you want in a race driver. He's absolutely ruthless, and like hats off to like his cheatiness like in what was it in 94 when he ran Damon Hill off the track at Adelaide, like he did that on purpose because he's like, oh, I'll win the world title if I just wreck both of us. Same thing with Jacques Villeneuve in 97. Like he turned into Jacques to purposely try and wreck his car because he's like, if we both crash, then I win. But then it didn't work. And then, he got a penalty anyway. But like, I love that. Knowing the scenarios, of like, oh, what do I have to do to win? It's brilliant. I would have him at third.
Win at all costs. Third? Oh,
Yeah.
man. I wouldn't put him at third. On my list, I think number 3 perfect. Dale Earnhardt, the Intimidator, Ironhead, every other nickname, one tough customer, you name it. It's Dale Earnhardt, Mark. 7-time Winston Cup champion, 1980. Might add 1980 was his second full-time season in the Cup Series. 86, 87, 90, 91, 93, and 94. Holder of 76 Cup Series victories. Won the 1998 Daytona 500. And of all those international race of champions, he was champion 4 times. 1990, 95, 99, and 2000. And Mark, in the final year of his final full season of Cup Series competition, he finished second in points. So Dale Earnhardt definitely had maybe another 3 seasons in him. Were they going to be decent?
I think he would have gone out in 2005.
I don't know.
I think he would have gone out with Rusty in 2005. Yeah. I think that's like they would have retired together probably.
With everyone understanding the landscape of where the sport was going from 2004 on with the new car of tomorrow and everything and the packages of the television deal, he would have got out 2005. That would have been perfect for him, especially with the whole like chase as well. His story is synonymous. I mean, if this is the American list, he's probably number 1 almost in everybody's eyes, just because his story is so relatable to people. And the same thing with Ayrton Senna's story, kind of to everyone in Brazil. People rally around him, much like blue collar people in America rally around Dale Earnhardt. So his ability to transcend in this country is huge. He's transcended around the world. His car is so iconic. I mean, Daniel Ricciardo looks up to the guy. I mean, he still transcends to this day. I don't know. It's hard to like not have Dale Earnhardt, in my opinion, in the top 3. And to have him third, I think it's just appropriate. But I get it. There are other people that could be more worthy of a top 3 podium position than Dale Earnhardt. But, you talk about Schumacher's cheatiness. I mean, Earnhardt was the same way in a certain aspect, but just about the entertainment aspect, just willing to go 3 wide on lap 2 just because he knew he wanted to entertain the fans in the grandstands. He didn't care. Just things like that. Wrecking people on purpose and bumping people, just rubbing them. And, and his silly quotes, you talked about like people are always like, oh, people with the fastest car are always winning. It's like, his quote about the fastest car isn't the one that wins, the driver that refuses to lose is it resonates. It's pretty cool, so I don't know, man. He's probably going to be in the top 5 no matter what, but I just want him third. It's just perfect.
At number 2, well, the last 2 are like pretty obvious who these 2 drivers are going to be. Good, we haven't mentioned yet, but number
there's
2
so many odd drivers.
Is Mario Andretti. 1978 Formula 1 world champion, 1984 IndyCar champion, the Indy 500 winner in 1969, the Daytona 500 winner in 1967, and your 1979 IROC champion. There are so many eras of Mario Andretti's career. He raced until he was like 300 years old. Like he was racing in kart when he was like 54. Like unbelievable. He had Nigel Mansell as a teammate.
He flipped at Indy in his 50s.
Yeah, when he was doing the like fill in the test,
lap,
like just I'm good with Mario at number 2. I have no problem with that. I think like of everything he won, raced at Le Mans, he won Sebring a bunch of times, like so. I'm good with that.
That's the thing is the diversity brings him up higher, but I feel like if you're just talking about flex, it's his name, dude. His name says it all. Andretti.
How many times have you heard Tony Stewart's name in a rap song? right?
Psh, never.
Never.
You know, Jeff Gordon's name has been in a Nelly song. So anyways, yeah, that I think that might put him higher than the person who is number one, because I don't think the person who's number one has ever been in a rap song before. So that person is AJ Foyt. Super Tex, every American's favorite driver. I'm just going to be honest right there, Mark. I think that's a safe assessment to say.
I'm good with that. I definitely imagine Tony Stewart, when he voted, put him at number one. So
he probably all caps, exclamation marks, circled it, underlined it like AJ Foyt, no one else. Take my list. 6 USAC national championships, 4 Indy 500 championships, 2 IROC championships, a Daytona 500 championship, 3 USAC stock car championships, and the only driver to ever win the Indy 500, Daytona 500, 24 hours of Le Mans, and 24 hours of Daytona. The man has done it all. He's probably the most diverse driver in racing history, a Swiss Army knife of a race car driver, Mark. Driven Porsche, prototypes, kart, Indy cars, NASCAR stock cars, owned his own stock car team, drove stock trucks. I mean, what hasn't AJ Foyt been involved in?
And that's why I think he's the perfect number one for this list.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's like, man, you think another driver around the world would have been like more diverse than, or maybe there has been, and there just hasn't been enough spotlight on it. I don't know.
Yeah, there's not really much discussion. This is fine. He's good at number one. I have no problems with that. Apparently AJ
or he'll
Foyt,
slap you.
If you ask him to sign something, if Mario Andretti has already signed something and you ask him to also sign it, he'll refuse. So because fans will try and do that, right? They'll try and get both their signatures, and he's like, no. So you have to get his signature first if you're going to get both of their signatures on something. So, and he's still a guy that people wait outside the AJ Foyt transporters at IndyCar races, hoping to get his autograph because he's a legend, right?
He is a legend.
Still goes to the races.
Well, I mean, I think that also attests to a guy like Richard Petty, and probably his longevity to be in the top 10 on this list, and even maybe John Force as well, because people line up for that man. And in the sport of drag racing, they're so fan friendly, always trying to accessible for them. You see it in sports cars all the time, but man, they make so much time in drag racing for their fans. So yeah, I think that's also a huge staying power for AJ on this list. So Mark, we made it through all 25 people on the list. And I put a little section here for us to ask ourselves who's missing, and, put some names on here and, kind of talk about a couple people who we think are missing. And Mark, I'll let you go first on your list of people who are missing.
Insert name of any MotoGP driver or any insert rally driver here, because
I got three. I got three for you on mine.
So I think so. Shirley Moe Downey made the list. I think there's other women race car drivers that were much more worthy of being on the list, like Michelle Mouton. She won 4 World Rally Championship races. She's the one of the most decorated female race car drivers in the world. Juan Pablo Montoya. Why is he not on this list? Now, granted, in 2008, he won Indy. He'd won 7 F1 Grand Prix. He'd won a Cup race at the time. He won a Busch race at the time. He won an IndyCar championship. I don't understand, just his versatility alone. The guy's won everything, but a lot of his accolades came after. Fernando Alonso is another one, 2-time F1 world champion. If you ask anyone on the F1 grid, they'll tell you he's the best driver they've ever seen. So, and now he's won Le Mans twice. He's raced the Dakar Rally. He won Daytona once. So he's another guy. And then just rally drivers, Sebastian Loeb, somebody how is he not on the list? Or even just Carlos Sainz for all the Dakar Rally wins and things like that. None of those guys are even considered. And then, of course, come on, Robbie Gordon. Come on, he should be top 5, easy. Okay, he's won Baja a bunch of times. He's won stages in the Dakar Rally. He's won Cup races. He's won IndyCar races. Oh, we gotta give me Robbie Gordon at 25. Come on. Just for his versatility alone, the man had so many different careers.
I think the biggest thing we discussed it in our pre-notes was the one thing that every person on this list has in common is they're a champion. And unfortunately, there were a few drivers that are really great in their versatility, but didn't stay around, I guess, in the series long enough, or didn't have the best ride for the season to win the title. And I feel like that weighs a lot too, because that is normally who are the most remembered are those who were on top and winning the championship. You're on top for the year. So I feel like that's a huge, unfortunate staying power with this list. Why we don't see some of those names on here.
And like you mentioned before, Scott Sharp. Scott Sharp won an IndyCar championship. He won Trans Am. He raced in Trans Am before that. Then he ran IndyCars. Then he had a very successful sports car career. Come on, another guy that is just people not enough credit. But yeah, go ahead. Who are your guys?
Again, the pool, because then with this pool of people wouldn't have said Lynn St. James. It would have been great to have put Lynn St. James on this list. I mean, pioneer of multifaceted driving, and being a woman who was a multifaceted driver was huge, especially during the period where she was in the 80s in sports cars. She had a really great career there. She had a great relationship with Ford, set a world land speed record at Talladega, went to Indy several times, was competitive in IndyCar. I mean, was a very marketable name, household name, especially in America. America's definitely this list. Colin Mcrae. I mean, in doubt, flat out, man. This is one of the most influential people in my mind for rally racing. I mean, his reckless abandonment while driving stages is iconic. His time with Subaru is legendary. Just driving that 555 livery, it's so iconic. Subaru still uses it to this day. I mean, the man has made such an impact. And being the first, person from the UK to claim the World Rally Championship was a big feat for him. And his landmark, legacy of promoting video games and everything in the sport created new fans, created new people. More people want to be involved with it. He brought it to X Games, rally racing to X Games. Amazing person. Talk about MotoGP. Valentino Rossi. How have we not talked about the doctor? The doctor, 9-time MotoGP champion. Come on. Easily. At this point, I think he had 7 championships too. So he would have easily been on this list in 2008 as an active rider. And active riders, if this is an American list, how come we didn't talk about Nicky Hayden, 2006 MotoGP champion? Rest in peace, dog. I mean, if this is an American list, he's definitely in my top 25. World list, I know it's arguable, but still a name that could have been thrown in the hat from the pool. And finally, Ironman Ivan Stewart. Come on. Ivan Stewart, such a legendary name in off-road racing. He's won it all. Baja, mid 400, 500,000. Iconic with his relationships with PPI, Toyota. He was a marketable face, bringing his name to home consoles back when video games
just say he had his own arcade game. Come on,
yeah, man. He was in arcades and homes. So I mean, those are just some examples of who could have at least been considered for this list, let alone just have been on it. I mean, yeah, it all stems back to the pool of people you ask. So that's why this list looks the way it does. I don't know how you're going to reconstruct this dude.
Yeah.
Who are you going to put where?
It's just, it's a tough situation. And, it's an interesting list. Like, obviously it was made in 2008. It's going to look very different now. If we did, obviously Lewis Hamilton's probably going to be in the top 5, but again, I don't really want to redo it, because again, these lists are so hard to do because there's so many different disciplines of racing, and to compare them, and where does the context lie of like, oh, well, they were a trailblazer or in that era. And it's like, it's impossible. And that's why I hate when I see so much discourse on Twitter that's like, X driver is the best driver of all time, or Kyle Larson is better than Lewis Hamilton, or Jeff Gordon is better than AJ Foyt. And it's like, how do we know? Like, it's impossible to tell who's better. They all do different things.
I'll tell you how you tell. What you do is you go on iRacing, you put 2 cars, similar setups, everything, put the paint schemes of each driver on them, and let it go. Let the simulator.
We just need IROC back. That's what we need. We just need IROC to come back so we can get an idea of who the greatest drivers are.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Like
Put them
Travis
all in
Pastrana's got his
put them
thing.
all in stock car style cars on ovals, and we'll find
Mm,
out who the greatest driver of all time is.
Rufus thing now. Geez. I mean, the thing is, it's like IROC would be cool if like you could find a way to make the car foreign to everyone if it was on an oval, but still people who race on ovals. I don't know, dude. It's the funny thing. It's like someone who doesn't know the dangers or the limitations might be faster than someone who does know the dangers and limitations of oval racing. You know, it's just like we see it all the time in IndyCar. Whoa, this dude came from F1 and now they're great on ovals.
Yeah, we also have nobody from supercars on this list. Where's Dick Johnson, Jim Richards, Peter Brock, those guys? Come on.
Yeah, Dick Johnson.
Australia doesn't exist
at
because
least
it's
a
all the way
household
down
name.
there at the bottom of the list. Come on. Scott McLaughlin? Like, come on.
I don't know if Scott McLaughlin yet, but yeah, at least Dick Johnson. I think his name at least would have transcended.
Or Peter Brock. That guy won like 8
time.
million races in supercars. Like, you know, and I get that Australia's at the bottom of the world and we forget it exists, but like, come on. Then that's the thing.
You know, to that point,
never get a definitive list because there's always guys you're going to forget. Right?
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to talk, we didn't even talk about touring cars or things like that on this list.
I could name 5 drivers in IMSA right now I think should be on this list.
I was going to jokingly put Dennis Anderson, but Dennis Anderson could be on this list.
Elio Castroneves won 4 Indy 500s. And like, why is he not in consideration? Right? Like, you know, somebody like that. Well, Scott Dixon, I think at this period, Dixon's now won 6 titles. So he would definitely, Jimmy Johnson obviously would be on this list as well. He's won 7 championships and he's an IndyCar driver.
Yeah.
Now. So,
well, that's the thing. It's like every list is going to be different. Like you could be like, oh, and then let's make a list for all the pioneers in racing. Who's the greatest of the racing pioneers? And like you cut it off from a year period and you make that list. And you're like, who's the greatest of all time? And then that's where it gets murky. Like you're saying, you have too many things, and then all time doesn't make sense because you can't definitively say when time ends because we're still living in it. Things are still happening. Records are still being broken. History is still being written. You know, it's hard to say all time. So it's easy to categorize it a little bit more with context, but ESPN, I'm ashamed of you with this list. This was poor penmanship.
Yeah. Not impressed, but you know
clickbait.
What? These lists are never good. I used to write clickbait lists. It was great. And they used to tell me to like, hey, make it so people are mad and they comment. Like leave somebody obvious out, and then people will leave comments because we'll get more clicks. And I'm like, oh, okay. You know, I did a top underdogs one time and I didn't put the Greg Sachs win in 1985 and I got eaten alive in the comments and they loved it. They're like, great. People are talking. It's engagement. Okay.
Exactly. We win.
We always win. Even if you hate this podcast, make sure that you comment that you hate it. Okay.
Yeah. It's engagement. YouTube's like, oh, play it more. It's like, yes, good. We'll just give it a thumbs up because you commented. Algorithm. Yeah. Well, anyways, how'd you like that, Mark?
I would give that list a 1 out of 10. If we're gonna rank the list, I would give it a 1 out of 10. Terrible job.
It's pretty bad.
I guess it just shows how many of these pundits and drivers don't. You know, I think a lot of them like don't know a lot about maybe other series and just like, oh, who's a good F1 guys, and they just wrote some names down. You know, like. Because they tried to be, you know, not named just NASCAR guys or whatever, you know, like it's a tough scenario. And you know, AJ Foyt put himself first, 1,000%.
Even though it said he shouldn't have on the voting tally. I think another thing too is it's hard to ask drivers to be like, who is your greatest drivers of all? Who inspires you? It's like, you know, for them, like maybe it's not a driver that inspires them. Someone else might inspire them. To them, their greatest driver might be a family member or someone, you know, in a small space that pushed them to be a better driver. And it's not a big global scale. So this list in hindsight truly doesn't make sense to exist because of the fact, the way it was like, you know, accumulated. The people asking drivers to put down 25 drivers on a list, that's hard. You know, drivers have other interests and things. They're not constantly nerding out about motorsports, much like people like us are, people like on Twitter are. So to open that up to writers or to people within the industry or fan poll, I think that would have made it interesting. Obviously, you know, it would have also reflected a little bit, especially if you open up to a fan poll. If it's a lot of Americans, a lot of American names are going to be on there, but still open it up to writers. I think that would have been a better option. I think if they're going to retry this list, they should just make it of all time to a certain period and cut it off, not really try to talk about current drivers. I don't know.
I'm with you. No,
or just not do it. Just don't do it.
Yeah, just don't do all-time lists because they're dumb.
Don't do it.
Now, granted,
what you should do?
Even 13 years later, this list is doing its job because we're talking about it, James.
Well, I mean, it didn't really work fully because we didn't go to the website to find the list. We found it somewhere else, which is funny. I don't know. ESPN, you didn't get ad paid reads from us, so suck it. Didn't fully work. Also, this speaks of ESPN's ability to push racing content out in the late 2000s. Just beautiful. Really going the extra mile there, ESPN.
Yeah. Well, I think that's going to do it for this edition of the Flashback of the Track podcast. Hopefully that gets the juices flowing and gets you pissed off as much as it got me pissed off. So,
or maybe it makes you want to rank your favorite family members in your household. You could do that too.
Rank
that will
everything.
If you rank everything, you're bound to piss somebody off because whoever's at the bottom is going to be pissed and whoever's not ranked is going to be pissed. You're never going to make anybody happy.
Well, I always rank Blue Emu as number one, James, when it comes to maximum strength.
Number one.
Okay.
That's right. It's number one in our hearts and in our medicine cabinets. See what I did there?
I keep it under the sink, actually, but
I was actually going to say you can put it in your bag too. It doesn't have to just be in your medicine cabinet.
Take it with you everywhere you go.
Take it on the go with you. Put a sticky note with a face on it, so it has a little smile, greets you. It's like it's like a little fun thing. You're not crazy.
We're not
fun.
Crazy. We're just having a good time.
That's right. Anyways, if you're having a good time, be sure to like and subscribe for more fabulous racing content
and
podcast forms.
Rate us. Give us 5 stars.
That's right. Give us whatever rating system is on your podcast platform, whether it's Google Play, Spotify. That's where I listen to Spotify.
I'm all about Spotify.
You on that Buzzsprout. Buzzsprout's fun. You're on YouTube. Just do what you need to do. Support this so we can support you with more racing content.
And on that note,
it's gonna be a long off season.
It's gonna be a long off season. We're gonna do lots of episodes though. We have time to bang things out. It's gonna be great.
It's gonna be cold, but don't worry, we'll warm you up with our wonderful racing thoughts.
And on that note,
you stay safe now.
stay safe and have fun.